due to the Sixth Doctor having a bit of an abrupt end to his television era, he didn't actually get a proper regeneration story. He didn't even get a proper regeneration scene, let alone a proper regeneration story or even an episode. So it fell to the responsibility of Big Finish in 2015 to wrap up the Sixth Doctor story 28 years after it ended on television, but not actually had a proper regeneration story. So they made the Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, a 4-part series that pretty much told the Valeyard's plan as a step-by-step plan to him trying to take over the lives of all Gallifreyans in the Matrix and destroy the Doctor once and for all. 6 is about to have the regeneration story he's long overdue deserved. But how is The Last Adventure as a series, and how are the stories in them? Stay tuned to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to this very special Big Finish review. Today we are looking at the Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, which details the final Sixth Doctor adventure chronologically as he gets the regeneration story he deserved. Now, there are other Sixth Doctor regeneration stories out there. There is the Time in the Rani novelisation, where it says he just bashed his head on the console, which can be assumed from Time in the Rani, the TV story. And there's this novel Spiral something, where it's said that the Seventh Doctor pretty much murders the Sixth Doctor. Right, the Time in the Rani novelisation one is too silly, and the Spiral Bound one, I think is what it's called, is too dark. So we need something a bit more heroic for the Sixth Doctor to end on, especially as he's the Doctor that probably most people like the least, or at least going by TV stories anyway. And Big Finish, of course, have done a big, massive redemption to the Sixth Doctor since starting the Doctor Audios in 1999. So by 2015, he's actually one of their most popular Doctors and has gained a massive fan base and re-love for his Doctor by fans of the show. And even those fans love those television stories that he's done. They love his Doctor so much that they all love his TV stories. Even the very campy ones, even the very silly, and even bad ones. They love those stories. And other big fans would also get into those TV stories, maybe due to looking back on them and liking them a bit more now, and or with expanded media influence. And certainly, I always enjoyed quite a couple of Sixth Doctor stories, and watching them back to back on my television series marathon, I actually really enjoy them a lot more. The era a lot more. There was a couple of stories I really enjoyed anyway. Some of them I had to get used to over time. Others got more so on this occasion. But over the course of my television viewings, it's quite an adventure. At time recording, I've still got to watch the last 2, but at time of this going out, I should have completed the entirety of the Colin Baker era, and we're about to jump into Sylvester McCoy. So it's actually a fitting way to end the Sixth Doctor reviews with his actual final story, which, like the 2017 partly animated version of Shada, we could say this is the definitive Sixth Doctor finale story. My only real major complaint is that it's audio and we don't get to see it. It's not a visual one. We don't even have an animated version. I would have liked to have seen it. I suppose for visuals, we'll just have to put up with the regeneration as seen at the start of Time in the Rani Part 1. Not that I'm saying that Big Finish doing it is a bad thing. I'm just saying I would have liked to have had a visual version as well. Maybe just animating that scene, or maybe having an animated version of the story. That'd be really great, by the way. Oh well, but how is the Sixth Doctor adventure as a series, and how are the stories? Okay, let's dive into the series. We start of all with the first story, The Line at the End, by Simon Barnard and Paul Morris, and it features the Sixth Doctor and Big Finish companion Constance. In fact, all of the companions in here are Big Finish one. You've got Constance in the first one. Second one, you've got Charlie Pollard, who originally started off with the Eighth Doctor and then later ended up with the Sixth Doctor. If you've seen my review of The Legacy of Time, then you'll know about that. Then you've got Stage Fright, which features Flip, and also we get guest characters Jago and Langford. Always a pleasure. And finally, well, of course she's got to be in the last one. It's Mel, because you can't tie it into Time the Rani without Mel. It's like if the 11th Doctor didn't get a final story, and there was a regeneration story gap between Day of the Doctor and Deep Breath, and you got to make this regeneration story via another medium, but you can't have it without Clara because she's in Deep Breath. Just for an example. So, yeah, Mel's got to be in the last story. Not sure why Perry's not in this series, though. Or Frobisher. Even I could understand, because I think Maggie Stables did pass away in 2014, which is a massive shame, though she and Perry do get name mentions in the final story. Why no Frobisher? # we need more Frobisher. And with love. With Frobisher, from Frobisher with love. Or two, I should say. But anyway, no. Let's not beat about the bush anymore. End of the line. The Doctor and Constance pretty much find themselves lost in a fog, and there's a couple of trains that are stuck at this destination. They eventually meet a few people, and they soon realise that this fog is a dimension gate in a way, a dimension junction actually, because there's a big junction station coming up. And it's a junction for several different dimensions, and it's all kind of bleeding through. And eventually, spoiler alert, this review contains spoilers, massive spoilers. The Doctor eventually discovers that the Master is behind all of this. The Anthony Ainley Master, although played by another actor here, as a way to get round not having Anthony Ainley in the series because he passed away in 2004, they brought in this other character who disguised him, who was the Master but disguised, and the guy was a kind of a projected image of or something of the Master, but he didn't look like Amy's Master. But just how his character, how he would be in this dimension thing, basically an avatar in a computer game, perhaps. And he's got this plan to do something with the dimensions. I can't quite remember, but he's up to something. And this domain actually belongs to another villain who's going to plague the Doctor a bit more in the series. As it turns out, one of the friends the Doctor and Constance had throughout the story turns out to be the Valeyard in disguise once again. Yeah, he's up to something. Eventually, the Doctor is able to stop the Master's plan, and the Master runs away after being given a warning via the Valeyard. And this is actually a really good story. Got some really good side characters, including the Master and the Valeyard in their disguised character forms, and they're really fun, engaging characters. As are the other characters on the train. One of these characters a few of these characters actually go a little insane in places and start going mad. One of them kills people without knowing it, and another person starts smashing up windows and damaging the train. And there's also this health and safety Norman guy, who is just one of these many Norman people. I'm wondering if people who are parodying the Nardals in both Five Who fans and Pope Zygon Productions, I wonder if they sort of took inspiration from this story with the many of this Normans, the many Normans, and because the Nardal joke throughout the Five Who fans 2017 videos, they kind of merged them together to make the Nardals, which Pope Zygon Productions have parodied. We're going for a storyline with Nardals. Yeah, I wonder if they took inspiration from that. I don't know if they did or not, but it's something to think about. But yeah, that's quite interesting. In fact, if this was made in 2017 or 2018, it would probably be Bernardo's. Oh, that would be so good. In fact, there's actually another sort of post-2015 TV series Doctor Who idea later down the line as well. Whether they took inspiration here or not is probably not the case with that latter one, actually. But yeah, End of the Line is a very good story, and it's possibly my favourite of the series, not only because it has trains and railway stations, but also it's got some really interesting and humanised characters, plus a really great new take on the Master, and the Valeyard doesn't have a huge amount of involvement with this story, which is nice for setup. He can setting up his plan without having any direct contact with the Doctor, and this is also something the next story does very well as well. But he gets a bit more dirty in that story. Here, he's not that involved, but he's still, he does have contact as the Doctor, but in this disguised form, and that's great. He's setting up his story arc after rejuvenating or something, and just brilliant. It's all handled really well. The characters are all great. It does feel like there is a little bit of a padding in the second half. It does feel like it does go on a little bit, but in the end, it's still a really good story, and possibly my favourite of the box set of the series. So the End of the Line gets a 9 out of 10 from me. I think it could have been a 10 if there was a bit more meatier stuff in around the middle start of the second half. Next up is The Red House by Alan Barnes, and this story sees the 6th Doctor and Charlie arrive on an island inhabited by Wolverine creatures. These sort of werewolves, in a way, werewolf people, and are chased down by the police, and eventually the Doctor finds himself with this bunch of teenage gang who pretty much, like, in daylight, they sort of turn into these kind of human, not human, but sort of, I suppose, human Wolverine wolf creatures, and it's quite weird. It's like, I suppose it's like taking drugs. But yeah, they're doing this. Meanwhile, Charlie is captured by the wolves and sent to this Dr. What's her name? Dr. Payne, although some of the characters think she's called Dr. Payne. I'm called Payne. But Dr. Payne, and she's trying to help these creatures, help them out with their anger issues, I suppose. She's trying to help them out. However, these other guys don't see it that way. They see that she's tampering with their biological structure or something. She's doing some nasty experiments. So they try to overthrow her. However, it's revealed to Charlie by the Valeyard, posing as the porter, that the humans attacked these creatures when they first arrived on a colony base, and they separated them from each other now for planetary ownership, I suppose, something along those lines. And Dr. Payne is trying to find a way to help them, and if anything goes wrong, they will send a nuclear missile out, which they do once it's reported that something has gone wrong, and it wasn't Pangton reporting in. So a nuclear missile is sent on the way to the planet. Pangton instructs the Doctor to rescue 2 of the Wolverines and pairing a breeding pair, and the Doctor hopes that he can evacuate everybody off the island in one, either by TARDIS or on the rafts. However, the missile is stopped by the Valeyard in order to give him time to escape with what he wanted to take, which was Dr. Pangton, a machine from that Dr. Pangton had. So thankfully the day is saved once again, thanks to the Doctor and the Valeyard, I guess. And yeah, this is probably my least favourite story, not because it's bad, not because there isn't anything interesting in it, but I don't know, it's a bit hard to follow in places, and I just think the other stories are better. But it's still a very good story, and Alan Barnes did some very good character work, and the twists and turns were also very good. It's also great that the Valeyard had a bit of interaction with Charlie, but no direct interaction with the Doctor. That was great. In fact, less interaction than End of the Line, and he was disguised there. So that was neat. But yeah, Red House. I thought it was a very good story. I don't think it's quite as good as the other stories of the season, but still pretty good. 9 out of 10. Wait, both my favourites and least favourite stories are 9 out of 10s? Oh, I guess you'll know what the next two scores are, I guess. Okay, Stage Fright is next by Matt Fitton, and the Doctor and new companion, well, not new companion, Constance was the new companion, regular companion Flip, well, I say regular as in still there. They go and see they go and see the Doctor's old friends, Henry Gordon Jago and Professor George Lightfoot, who we first saw in the TV story The Talons of Wang Chang, and have gone on to have their own Big Finish spin-off and appear in a few other Doctor Who stories. And here they are once again, helping up the Doctor and Flip, as this Mr. Vale, Mr. Valeyard, the Valeyard, I should say, is taking young actors and making them recreate moments of the Doctor's regenerations from 1 to 5, although we don't see 5s. We see recreations of 1, 2, 3, and 4s, but not 5s for some reason. 2s is at the end, is the very end one, but 1, 3, and 4 certainly. And he's doing that to take the energy out of those people whilst experiencing the regenerations, as he is the Doctor technically, in a way. He can re-experience those regeneration deaths, and yes, we can take the energy out of the people and rejuvenate himself, I guess. Whatever he was doing in episode 1, he manages to complete here, and along with his weapon from part 2, he's able to have his big reckoning in the next episode, which we'll get to in a little bit. And the Doctor and Professor Lightfoot are investigating the dead bodies of these actors, of young people, looking around. Meanwhile, the brother of one of these people has come down. He's trying to find Mr. Yard, and he gets caught up in the situation. And then Jago and also their the regular pub landlady, Ellie. I say regular pub, the one that they always go to, by the sounds of this audio. So the landlady of the pub they always go to, by the sounds of this audio, Ellie, played brilliantly by Lisa Bowerman, best known for playing Bernie Summerfield, but she plays Ellie here, and she is fantastic, by the way. As always, I suppose. But yeah, and Ellie's such a really likable character. She doesn't really do much in this story, but actually that's not true. She actually does a good couple of stuff later on down the line. But yeah, she's really good. And anyway, the Valeyard kidnapped Jago and Ellie to be performers in the recreation of the third Doctor's regeneration scene. Eventually, the Doctor, Lightfoot, and Flip eventually rescue them, and then the Doctor pursues the Valeyard to his clothes shop that they discovered earlier on. However, Flip has already pursued the Valeyard and has been captured alongside the brother of the deceased actress I mentioned earlier. So the Valeyard attempts to extract the final piece of life out of the Doctor through his bad emotions like anger and sadness, but Flip is able to save the day by overcoming her fears of being on stage and helping the Doctor realise his happier emotions, plus distract him from the Valeyard, whilst Jago, Lightfoot and Ellie bring an angry mob to pretty much save them, and the Valeyard escapes. But he has succeeded in what he needs to do. He's got enough energy and escapes, which leads to a final reckoning with the Doctor in part 4. But this story is really enjoyable. I suppose the addition of Jago and Lightfoot adds to the presence of enjoyment to the story. They're always great to hear, and as I mentioned, Ellie's a great character. I haven't heard her character before this audio. I think she's a regular in the normal Jago and Lightfoot audio, so if I ever get to listen to those ones, then I'll be happy to hear her again. As for Flip, I'm unlike Constance, which I pretty much took to not quite immediately, but pretty early on. I really like Constance. I liked her quite a lot shortly after hearing her for the first time. And technically, end of the line was her first ever appearance. Her first chronological appearance would actually, after looking it up, would be another month or two later. So technically, that was her first ever appearance in terms of a release order, with a proper first appearance coming a month later or two. So that was great. I actually pretty much probably took to her as pretty as soon as maybe most of the audiences when this box set came out, and would be happy to hear her again in later audios. As for Flip, she's already an established character, and to be honest, I didn't really take to her that quickly. I actually thought she was pretty weak to start with. However, as the story went on, I started to like her, started to like the actress, and I started to like the character more as we went along, and by the end, I like Flip. I mean, she's probably one of my lesser favourite Sixth Doctor audio companions at the moment, but that's just from one story. That's not quite fair, but I still like her at the very end. I thought she was really good, and her standing up to her fears was very good in helping the Doctor out. So yeah, Flip was good. Just about. It's the same thing that happened with Bliss in the first story of Legacy of Time. She was pretty annoying. To begin with, quite flamboyant. I suppose that was the character, to be honest, with that one's case. And then by the end, you kind of felt sorry for her. She was quite sympathetic, quite fun to be around in places. So, yeah, I suppose if you are able to like the character by the end of their first story, then if they've got more stories, you'll be up for checking them out, checking those other stories out, I suppose. This story also does a bold move in having the Doctor and the Valeyard the Valeyard actually trying to get the Doctor's attention, the Doctor finding out about the Valeyard, and even a confrontation or two. That's actually quite interesting, considering the first story he was helping the Doctor out, just pretending to be this little ally friend, finding out what's going on, trying to stop the Master. And then in part 2, he was just working in the shadows, working on his plan, just building it up, only interacting with Charlie, and whilst the Doctor did find out that Charlie had interaction with another Time Lord, he didn't know it was the Valeyard in either case. Although he would probably work it out later on. But here, they actually interact properly, and it's actually a bold move for the penultimate story of 4. I mean, if it was more than 4, it'd probably be less bold. But it's quite bold and pretty enjoyable, and it does give the sense of forebodement for the Doctor. That being said, because it's going across several different companions, does mean that the Doctor either will be having this on his mind for a long time, and it just take him until the end of his travels until he actually finds out what the Valeyard is up to. Presumably, the other Big Finish audios and expanded media stories of the Valeyards have taken place at earlier points in the Doctor's life before this, or at least before stage fright, anyway. Certainly for the Valeyard's case, but I presume they take place earlier before the Doctor is travelling with Flip when they take place. Like Trial of Valeyard is probably during when the Sixth Doctor is companionless at some point during those gaps. So Stage Fright, really great story, really great acting, great characters, and I think after End of the Line, this would be my second favourite story, 9 out of 10. And now finally we come to the season finale, which is The Brink of Death, written by Nicholas Briggs, who also directs the entire series, and if there was any Daleks in this story, he would be voicing them. There are no Daleks in this story. Oh, I'm sad. Oh well, we had the Masters, so that's all right. Back in the first episode, but yeah, The Brink of Death sees the Doctor and Mel have just had an adventure. This is the only story with a pre-title scene, by the way, for some reason. But we've final story, but we open with them just having an adventure on a planet, and they go off. But the TARDIS is having some problems, and eventually the Valeyard is able to swap himself out with the Doctor and establishing himself as the Doctor, whilst the Doctor is erased by the Matrix as a glitch. However, the Doctor gets hope, as there is this Time Lord technician by the name of what's her name? Janesta, played by Liz White, who fans of the TV series, or at least a new series era, may remember was played a minor character in the 2012 Christmas special, The Snowmen, up against Matt Smith's Doctor. Maybe you forgot about that, I'm not sure. I did wonder if it was the same actress, but in the behind the scenes she does confirm this. But yeah, she helps the Doctor out, and it soon becomes apparent that she's pretty much a younger version of the Doctor. She's or at least has something similar to her. The Doctor sees something of himself inside her, and he takes a strong liking to her, and throughout the story she keeps helping him out until the Doctor realises there's only one thing to stop the Valeyard, and that's to change time, and that's to make him decide, actually, we're going to go to this planet called Lacertia, and we're going to avoid this other planet we went to in the pre-title scene. And so by doing that, we can stop the Valeyard from taking over my life and taking over me. And also his diabolical plan to pretty much invading the Matrix and having all of the Time Lord's subconsciousnesses in the Matrix turned into the Valeyard. And it works really well. Again, massive spoilers for this story, but I love the Doctor's interactions with Jeyston. They are the highlight of the series. It's just so perfectly done. And if this was any other story, Jeyston would be the perfect companion, or even get her own spin-off. But unfortunately, Jeyston does not get a happy ending. It turns out the Valeyard was Jeyston all along, and throughout the story, he has been other characters, and he's gotten these other guys to help with the Doctor's plan. So that is really a shame. However, I cannot believe that Jeyston was the Valeyard all along. It can't be. It can't be. The Doctor doesn't believe it either, and I'm fairly certain Jeyston was her own character, and then later down the line, the Master took over her, just like he did with her boss character we heard earlier on. I'm pretty sure, although it would have been nice to explain it where she came from. Maybe she was the Watcher. Maybe she was another incarnation of the Watcher, and she was to help the Sixth Doctor, because otherwise, why would the Valeyard help the Doctor escape from the Matrix at all? Because it's Genosha who rescues him from the Matrix, and when he keeps getting sent back there by the Valeyard, it's her who rescues him, and eventually the Valeyard reveals himself to be Genosha. But I'm certain that she is her own character earlier on, but towards the end, the Valeyard takes over her. And my fear, and I think it would have been a great idea if she was the Watcher, or a character who was looking out for the Doctor to ensure he survived. Maybe the Inquisitor felt guilty over the Trial of the Time Lords events and wanted someone watching him. Maybe Chancellor Xavier or Romana wanted someone to make sure he got out of this situation alive and stopped the Valeyard. Just someone say Genosha was sent, and whilst it cost her life, she proved to be a extremely helpful ally. Yeah, no questions asked. This just the perfect companion, pretty much. Just, yeah, I mean, pretty much, or maybe even the next Doctor, not the next Doctor as in the next incarnation, but the next Time Lord to follow the Doctor's example. That would have been really great, but unfortunately, she doesn't make it, which I kind of thought was going to happen, considering this is the Sixth Doctor's last story, and she's not in Time the Rani, obviously. So yeah, I didn't think she was going to make it. A bit like Luke in the Mark of the Rani. As soon as George Stephenson says, "Oh, he's going to be such a great guy. He's going to be much better engineer and future guy, or blah 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 than me," and then the Master captures him and turns him into his slave. And yeah, I know he's dead by that point. Well, not dead then, but I know he's going to die. And it's the same with Genosha. I was worried it was going to happen, and yeah, she's dead. Or turned into the Valeyard, or was the Valeyard all along, but I can't believe that. I really can't believe that, and neither can the Doctor. Can't believe that Genosha was always the Valeyard. She must have been someone else, and then he took over her. Well, rest in peace, Genosha, whichever one you were. You were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Would have loved to have heard you as a companion or a reoccurring character, or to have your own spin-off. That would have been amazing. Surprisingly, Mel doesn't actually get a huge amount of stuff to do in the story, considering she's pretty much she's got the main image on the picture. She gets her name on the back. The Doctor and Mel face the Valeyard for the final confrontation. She surprisingly doesn't actually get a lot to do, and more so considering that, like the Sixth Doctor, her character has gone through a redemption arc in the earlier Big Finish audio. So by 2015, she's actually a likeable character, and Bonnie Langford is tolerable as both the actress and in real life. The TV series, neither were pretty likeable or tolerable, but in audio they are. So considering they've done that, and that she's such an important character to the regeneration story of 6 and into 7, it's quite surprising that she actually doesn't get a huge amount to do post the post-regeneration scene. Sorry, post the pre-title scene and before the regeneration. There really isn't that much. There's a few scenes dedicated to her in the first half, and she gets some really good stuff, really good interactions with a side character, and some pretty cool moments and some good lines. But on the whole, she actually doesn't get a huge amount to do until towards the end, which I find surprising. However, it all comes down to the Doctor's final confrontation with the Valeyard, and I'm sure the Valeyard's still alive out there, but he's now stuck in the Matrix again. But the Doctor is able to change time to give him his past self before they went to the planet, as seen in the pre-title scene, kind of make him change his mind and go, right, actually, we're going to go to this planet Lucertia. It does look like there's some radiation, but we'll go there instead, and therefore change his time, meaning the Valeyard can't take over his body. Also, the Doctor deliberately sends his himself into the radiation field so that he can die/regenerate and lose all contact with the Valeyard. And as the radiation isn't harmful to humans, Mel is safe, so he's able to make sure she's safe whilst sacrificing himself to save the day. As this regeneration energy is deadly to Time Lords, and it does look like the Doctor is going to die. And it's a great scene. The Sixth Doctor is prepared to sacrifice himself, and it's just so beautifully done. And yeah, what makes it even better though is they actually got Sylvester McCoy in to do his first few lines as the Seventh Doctor, albeit in the Doctor's head. The Seventh Doctor is pretty much confirming to his predecessor that he will survive, he will carry on, and he has nothing to fear anymore. And yeah, he's safe. He saved the day. It's time to carry on. And yeah, it's really, really great and just absolutely wonderful. Perfect connection. My only issue is that we don't get any audio clips from Time in the Rani and have the regeneration at the very end in audio there, and then it's kind of ending with the Seventh Doctor's theme, or the Sixth Doctor's theme, then merging into the Seventh Doctor's theme at the end. There's some fan edits out there that are really good doing that, by the way, though. But I thought that was from the original, the actual ending of the audio. I thought it was going to end on the Rani actually coming into the TARDIS. Kate Mara would have her only big finish appearance with the lines from Time in the Rani being used, like basically stock audio footage, I suppose, like we get stock footage in the new series. And we'd have the some of the audio from the first episode of Time in the Rani, which would have the Tarek moving the Doctor's body round, and we see the regeneration, or hear the regeneration in this case. That would have been really great, and then we jump into the end credits, which would have been a merge of 6 and 7's themes. That would have been amazing. But still a really great ending, and definitely the ending the Sixth Doctor deserved. Much, much better than just knocking his head on a console or falling off an exercise bike or both, or the Seventh Doctor just mercilessly killing the Sixth Doctor just so he can begin. No, they actually have a good story and a good explanation for it. And those whole funny lights at the start of Time in the Rani, they make a lot of sense. There's some sort of radiation thing that directed at the TARDIS so the Rani can bring the Doctor down for her experiments in that story, which we will get to soon. Wow, that was a big story. So the Brink of Death. Wow, that was a good story. I don't know if it's one of the best regeneration stories, but certainly the one the Sixth Doctor deserved, and far better than Time in the Rani, I might say. So yeah, that was brilliant. 9 out of 10. Actually, maybe it is one of the best regeneration stories in that case. So yeah, that was amazing. This series is amazing. And with 4 9 out of 10 stories, 4, that is consistent. That is strong consistency. I mean, there's no 10, sorry. But, I mean, if End of the Line was a little less meandering around the middle, then maybe that one would be a 10. But you know what? It's brilliant. This is a fantastic series. I love this series. And I love Six's treatment in the story. And I love the Valeyard's plot by step-by-step plan. And Part 4 kind of does wrap up a couple of things from the previous stories. I mean, there isn't really that much tie-in to Part 1, I suppose. But there is definitely ties to 2 and 3. There might be connections to Part 1. I'm not quite sure. Then again, Legacy of Time, I didn't really see how that connected to all of the 5 previous stories, and more maybe 3 or 4 of them, but not all 5 of them. I tried theorising it, and it sort of worked there. But anyway, Last Adventure is a fantastic series, and I highly recommend it. 9 out of 10 for the entire box set. Brilliant series, and yeah, we're ending with a fantastic finale for the Sixth Doctor. And you know, to anyone who's wanting to get Big Finish, and I would say that apart from anything with the Eighth Doctor or anything with the War Doctor, this would be one of the things you need to listen to complete or continue your Doctor Who experience. That being said, I haven't heard the War Doctor stories just yet at time of recording, but I hope to do so in the not too distant future. Hopefully one day. One day. There's only 12 of them, sadly. But besides 8 and War, because those Doctors didn't have enough TV screen time, and to be honest, after that, you can then get into more Doctors who haven't had enough screen time, or if you want more events from. But certainly after anything 8 or War, then the Sixth Doctor Last Adventure is a crucial piece of Doctor Who audio you need to check out, because it has the Sixth Doctor's regeneration story that, like Shada 2017, is the definitive version of that that regeneration. And yeah, it's handled so well, and the build up to it is also really well with the 3 stories beforehand. I mean, there's no bad story in this one. All of them are 9 out of 10. So my ranking would be Red House, Brink of Death, Stage Fright, End of the Line. But they're all brilliant. They're all so brilliant. There's no bad stories. And they're near perfect. I mean, not quite there yet, but near perfect. And I think so good. And the behind the scenes are also some good stuff. I think they do talk about End of the Line quite a bit too much. I think they could have gotten on to the other ones a bit quicker, but you know, never mind. But yeah, and I think this is a great way for Six to end on. And also, Colin Baker pretty much agrees with my comment on Genosha being a potential companion if this was any other story. He mentions that he thinks that she could be as well, and he's pretty much agreeing with me without actually having a conversation. We need to have a talk about that one day. Yeah, it's a fantastic series, and I also think, from what I heard about them talking to Colin about the series and him wanting to do it, or sort of wanting to do it, I think he should have gotten a producer credit of some sort as well for all his involvement in creating this, helping create the stories and formalizing the plan. At least give him an associate producer credit. That would have been an honor for him. Associate producer Colin Baker. That would have been amazing. But anyway, The Last Adventure, brilliant box set, and highly recommend it. And do get it on CD, because you get this nice box set slipcase, and you can listen to it on CD as well as download. And you've got this book that is also really nice. You get an introduction by Colin. Get some writer's notes about the episodes, plus some quotes with pictures with the characters. This is the Red House, for example. And you get some nice page or 2 spread pictures, and also producers' notes. And yeah, it's nice. I actually prefer this booklet to The End of the Line, because that one felt too small, and the first disc was kind of slipped into the side here, unlike here, which actually does have the 5 of these kind of cardboardy pages where you slip the discs in. End of the Line just slot the first one in on the first side of the book, and it was too small, and just a bit too small. So I think this one is actually the perfect size for a 5-disc box set, and it works really well. And there's also some lovely artwork. This is so lovely, and you even get this lovely poster, which is pretty much the cover image without any cast text apart from the Doctor Who logo and the Big Finish logo. So great, and I love the way they did the artwork of the regeneration of the Sixth Doctor. I think it would have been nice to have a different image for each disc. It's just the Doctor here, but when we get to disc 4, it does have the regeneration image. Of course, using the same covers per disc is something they do. Big Finish do, and it's also something the American Doctor Who covers, they use the same picture of the Doctor on their discs or something, and even the UK DVDs sometimes they have the same image, but usually they'll do something a bit different with them, apart from if it's a new series. And then finally we got the image from the cover as our special features disc, and it all looks really lovely. And I think that's a great regeneration picture disc. Although some of the characters, some reason they're also on the picture as well, and whilst they weren't on the normal picture, but they are on the regeneration image. I'm not even sure who's at the bottom. Who's that? Who's that character? Is that supposed to be Ellie? Ellie, Lisa Bowerman. I'm not quite sure. Constance, Charlie, and Flipper there, and it doesn't look like Mel. Who is it? Is it Genosha? No, it can't be. Who is it? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And yeah, lovely book, lovely box set, fantastic series. Highly recommend it. It's one of the big Finish audio series that you should highly check out alongside anything 8th Doctor and anything War Doctor, because they didn't have enough TV screen time, and then this because it's the 6th Doctor regeneration story and it's the definitive version. You can also check out Sharda as well, because that was pretty much probably the definitive version before the 2017 version. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you for watching this review, and I shall see you guys next time with my Doctor Who TV reviews on the Retro channel. The next story, at time of recording, I still have the last 2 Colin Bakers to watch, but at time of this going out, next one should be Time in the Rani, which will see the introduction of Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. But before we go, Colin Baker, thank you. I salute you. Thank you for everything you've done. Cheers. And well done, Big Finish, for creating such an amazing series and for giving the 6th Doctor the send-off he deserved. Double salute. Right, I'm done now. Okay, bye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. The final, sorry, that's not right, and actually has gained a massive fan base, both in, we still have to put up with the Time in the Rani, episode 1 regeneration for visuals, I suppose. I guess we'll still have to put up with that Time in the Rani Part 1 regenerations, I suppose. Not that I'm saying not having it done in audio is a bad thing. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I would have liked to have... It's like doing Time with the Doctor, like having a story just before that without Clara. Actually, you could do that. What am I thinking? Excuse me. Next up is The Red House by Alan Barnes, and this features the 6th. Next up is the... Payne. However, it turns out that the humans have... however, it turns out that, thanks to the Valeyard, however, it turns out to Charlie... Wait, it's my least favourite... and yeah, and the Doctor... and technically, this is her... That was... End of the Line was her first chronology. But that's just from one story, but that's not quite fair. And speaking of the final reckoning, we have The Brink of Death by Nicholas Briggs, who also directs the entire series and is an executive producer. And if there was any Daleks in this story, he would be voicing them. And the Brink of Death. This one is actually probably. Oh, I haven't done the stage fright score. And now onto the Brink of Death. Onto the Brink of Death. Who Doctor Who TV fans will know cameoed, well, not cameoed, made an appearance as a guest. Who fans of the new series would probably remember played a smaller role character. Surprising me. Yeah. But never mind. Once the Doctor defeats the Valeyard, yeah. Hang on. Yeah, it's actually a very good, that's actually a really, the only problem is it doesn't actually directly tie in. So, the Brink of Death. No, it's not. What was that? So, yeah, masterpiece. No, it's not, I'm joking. And with 9, no, yes, this, if you ever needed to, because it will give you the 6th Doctor's regeneration story that he deserved. Because it will give the 6th, and maybe Michael Jayston too, because he has such a big involvement. No, no. You get some fun information, writers,